You guys have probably heard track coaches say that an athlete is strong enough, they don't need to work on getting any stronger, and that they should develop other qualities. In today's episode, we're actually going to deep dive this as it pertains to 1 foot and 2 foot jumping. My name is John Evans. This is Isaiah Rivera. He's the highest jumper in the world, and yeah, we're gonna dive into this. So Isaiah, what do you think is strong enough if you are a basketball player, football player, and let's go basketball, football? What do you think is strong enough for each of those sports?
Well, the goal being what?
To be the best, to be
The best basketball player?
best basketball player, the best to be your best self in those respective sports.
No limit.
No limit soldiers.
Are we talking relative strength or absolute strength?
Just I want you to interpret it as you see fit.
I think that there is no limit to relative strength in basketball. The stronger you are relative to your body weight, the better it will benefit you in every facet of the sport. However, I think absolute strength would have its drawbacks because you're just arbitrarily getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and if you do that, you'll become really slow. In football, I think it's position dependent. I think if you're a lineman, just get big as hell, just you get massive and strong, both things. I think if you're something like a linebacker or something like that, it's essentially a momentum-based sport. So relative strength plays a huge role in there. I think you need to be a certain size. A linebacker would be what, like 220 or something like that?
High IQ answer here. I like it.
And then the receiver positions, the DBs, those guys, I think that's more so like how you would train if you're a basketball player, like just get your relative strength up. And relative strength has a lot of correlation with speed and power, rate of force development, and that type of thing. And then I think for a dunker, it's the same thing. There's no limit to how strong you can get relative to your body weight. Like, I don't think there would be drawbacks. I think the drawbacks where you would see it is if you're focusing too much on it to where you don't focus on the other qualities.
Yeah, and I think that's a dangerous trap that you could fall into, because I've seen guys, and even for you at times, I think it's like tempting to want to just go volume intensity, or whatever. Just increase your squat arbitrarily or increase your power clean arbitrarily. But for 2 foot jumping, I really don't think, Mike would always say this. He was like, if you want to break through a plateau or something like that, there is no strong enough. Just get stronger, get more capable of generating force. And I saw him actually post this yesterday on his Instagram, which was really interesting. He was talking about youth development, and he was saying if you're between 16 and 18 years old, you really need to focus on getting your maximal strength as high as possible during that period of time. And during that, you'll see your power development also increase, which is what we see in research quite a bit. And then he says,
I think I have that research study in my pocket right now.
Oh, you could probably pull it up. But he also says that we're really good. He calls it the load velocity relationship, a force velocity relationship.
Found it.
Look at that.
Effect of strength training on EMG of human skeletal muscle.
Muscles.
Thorstensen, Carlson, Vitazlo. They basically did a study. This is for beginner lifters, and just getting stronger improved their rate of force development even below 200 milliseconds. And then this is the second study, increased rate of force development and neural drive of human skeletal muscle following resistance training by Agard, Simonson, Anderson. And they looked at basically the same thing but lifting with intent, and it improved, again, just heavy weight training with intent. They're not doing plyos and that type of thing. I still think they were practicing the sport during it. And they improved rate of force development below 200 milliseconds by even more.
Yep.
And this is in beginner lifters.
Yeah, that tracks. That tracks.
Exact.
So he basically says, look, you're really good at generating force on the ground. We stood on force plates, had someone do a squat. They'd be really good at generating a lot of force concentrically, but only slowly. You have to move very slowly to generate a lot of force. And he said that's not what determines success in field and court sports. It's your force generating capacity eccentrically is what determines your success in sport. And so yesterday I posted you doing 600 pounds it was 585 in a negative in a half squat, which is probably the deepest I've seen you do it and the slowest I've seen you do it, maybe outside of one time last year.
That might have been lower than when I did it.
I think it was.
Last
I think it was
year.
lower,
That's
and
a
it
good
was
point.
also. I mean, you went real. I haven't watched it in a while. You went really slow last year, but you definitely handled it better this year. Like
Yeah.
last year that we did it, it crushed you. You finished the rep, and you were your hands on your knees, like I feel like I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
This year was less in that ceiling. I would say like above your ceiling. It was almost below. It was sub-maximal, I would say, where that was truly, truly maximal, which is a really good sign. And then also we did it with volume. So we had a fair bit of volume prior to that, and then also that was one single top rep. So I don't think, when the question is like, how strong is strong enough?
What type of strength are
Concentrically,
you talking
what
about?
type of strength are you talking about? Because strength is a term that people use to describe just the maximal concentric capacity of the muscle. That's not necessarily what we care about. We care about the eccentric capacity of the muscle and the isometric capacity of the muscle. And Mike also mentions that too in this brief short on Instagram. He's like, I care more about eccentric and isometric strength. And I agree. I think that is largely the determinant of success in athletes. I think that we, for years, have been pigeonholed into just concentric strength, but the other two types of muscle contractions are more important for athleticism.
You know what's really interesting is right now, I'm probably jumping my best ever, especially if you look at me like if I'm deloaded and fresh. And concentrically, I'm not at my strongest ever.
No, that's generally how it is for you. It's like when your eccentric strength is really high, but you're light, I feel like that's when you jump. And you have reasonable concentric strength. Like
Yeah.
you still need concentric strength, but when that eccentric qualities are really, really high.
Like
that's
I'm
whenever I
within
think
probably 95% of my concentric
Yeah.
max, like all-time max.
And there's still benefits to having really high concentric force development, whether it's fast or slow.
And
For those
the-
of you that don't know, eccentric is on the down phase, lengthening the muscle. Isometric is the same length, the muscle is the same length. Concentric is when the muscle is shortening, typically on the up phase of, like, say, a squat.
Yeah. And I think that's the benefit of using long conjugate sequence systems.
Yep.
Like this training cycle, you have me doing basically 2 eccentric days and then like a concentric dominant day on Saturday, which that day sucks, by the way, after jumping the previous day. And then if you think about having jump session, that's technically a
It is fast
eccentric
eccentric.
day.
That is fast eccentric. That is why I have it in there still, is it's really important to do that. And as you read, it's really important to practice your sports skill at max intent if you want to improve. Same thing with speed training or throwing or any other power development or power exercise or high velocity, explosive athletic movement.
So we probably got like 5 minutes, by the way. I think
that's
5
all right.
minutes. So what would you say are, off the top of your head, all the different types of strength?
I think that, well, that's a very complex question, but I like to think of it in terms of just force generating capacity of the muscle, whether it's eccentrically or it is literally just the muscle's ability to generate force. I don't view it in terms of types of strength. It's just, hey, how well does your muscle generate force at a given angle? And can it do it fast? Can it do it slow? Can it do it over long intervals? Can it do it over short intervals? That's how I view it.
So it's basically okay.
I don't view it, and can it do it in the negative direction, the positive
Yeah.
direction, and the same angle? Like that's how I view it.
So that's how many. Hold on, we're gonna do some multiplication here.
Some multiplication.
So we have actually joint angle is crazy because there's technically infinite.
No, there
joint
is.
angles.
Yeah,
but
there
let's call it.
Then there's you.
Let's call it quarter squat, like the main positions that we hit.
Okay, so quarter squat, half,
deep.
I'd say it's quarter, third, half, anything less than half, so 4.
4, and then we have positive, negative, 0 work.
Yep.
So that's 3. Then we have fast.
No speed, but that's isometric, so that's the same thing. We won't count that. So we have slow, pretty fast, really fast, plyo, like shock loading.
Yeah.
That's like 4, you could call.
Yeah.
And then you have, I don't know if a permutation. Are you doing a permutation? Is that what this is?
Yeah, like just all the combinations.
And then, I mean, direction also. Like, if you're just talking about the knee, I guess if we're just talking about like flexion extension.
Yeah.
So we covered, and then you have high load, low load,
Medium load.
medium load. Yeah. You could change the loads. So we did range of motion, velocity, joint angle, load. Yeah, I'd say that's
Yeah.
pretty
So
much
that's
there might be something else, but
that's 144
different
variations of
yeah. Yep.
strength
Exactly.
or force, I guess.
That's how I think about it. I don't necessarily think about it in terms of like, I gotta do like starting strength or I want to do strength speed. I'm like, no, I'm developing my ability to generate force at this given angle, whether it's eccentrically, concentrically, isometrically.
And then you would look at your sport skills. So let's say 1 foot jumping. 1 foot jumping we know is probably at a quarter squat angle, really fast eccentric, or high load, fast eccentric.
Exactly.
There's a lot of momentum going into it.
So that's the other thing too that we didn't even. I mean, it kind of relates, but is inertia, because inertia is also going to play a role. Like, for example, when you are dropping really fast in a squat, if you can only get to a certain velocity because of the acceleration due to gravity. So if you want to increase that velocity at a half squat, then you need to use pneumatics. You need to use air to basically accelerate the bar faster than what gravity could down to a quarter squat.
The 1080?
Yeah, 1080 could do it, or the Kaiser could do it, or a blend.
These are machines, by the way, if you want to look them up.
So, like, for example, if I'm doing rhythm quarter squats, if I'm only dropping 6 inches, or let's say a foot, that means gravity only has, if I am in free fall, the bar only has a foot worth of time to accelerate. That's the peak negative vertical velocity the bar will be at, versus if you add you're pushing it downward and you're, applying a net force to it, it's able to generate more momentum so that you're able to have more force to work against whenever you do start yielding.
Yep.
And I think that also is important. Maybe it's somewhat related to like super fast eccentrics, but you could take that into consideration when you're looking at most athletic movements, because you're not doing them from zero meter or degrees per second at the joint. You're going to see some sort of acceleration. So I think that that's another consideration that maybe would be like means and methods. So I don't think that it's necessarily like how strong is strong enough. If your question is how strong is strong enough concentrically for a given athlete, like,
you're looking at it wrong.
Yeah, I think that it's a very myopic.
If I were to sum it up,
microscopic view.
If I were to sum it up, it's like concentric strength, one of the easiest things to improve that can give you the most bang for your buck early on in your jump training career. But as you get more advanced, you have to address other things.
Yeah, and there's tons of ways to do that too.
And don't get too obsessed. But it's always, you can keep getting stronger as long as it's not to the detriment of a bunch, 143 other qualities.
Yes, that is a great way to think about it. If you're getting strong at one quality to the detriment of 143 others, then you are seriously missing the plot. You need to address all of those in a systematic way to improve over time.
And I've seen this.
I see it with people all the time, dude. They'll just do they'll do that one of 144 qualities for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, and then they'll be like, oh, now I'll work on this other concentric, and then you do 2 out of 144, and now by the last one, you're just doing like 3 or 4 of those 144 different potential options. And that's not even like we technically parsed it down. We really just went like slow, medium, fast, really fast. Like we didn't even really get into all the different ways to generate force. So I don't view it as in terms of strength training. I view it in terms of, and the other thing we didn't even talk about is time. Like that's slow technically, but you can modify time as well other ways. Like you could do an eccentric into a isometric, into an eccentric, into an isometric, and then 2 up. Like there's tons of different variations.
What you were saying to
the next progression.
What you want to do, like pause at each point in the eccentric.
So that you get more time. And you could technically increase the eccentric velocity by doing that. Because you could drop fast, pause, drop fast, pause, drop fast, pause. And that would be, you get the time component, and you also get the high velocity component.
That gives
so,
me a semi, bro.
And a semi, yeah. I mean, there's like other ways that you can do it. So I think
Keep talking to me, Daddy.
yeah, I know, I could. And that's why when we look at strength and conditioning, I don't view it as a very like black and white dogmatic way of viewing things of like, oh, it's just starting strength. That's what we're doing. And it's just speed strength, because your body doesn't necessarily go, oh, I know the difference between 0 meters per second and then 0 to 0.5 meters per second of average velocity or peak velocity. Like everything in between that, I don't understand until we're at, until we're at strength. And then everything between, 0.5 and 1 meters per second average until 1 and 2, that's strength speed. I don't understand anything from there, and there's no difference between those velocities from this point to this point. Like, your body isn't gonna just make these dogmatic hard cuts in the adaptations.
Yeah.
Your body's gonna be like, oh, okay, this is a little bit faster. How much faster? It doesn't matter. It just matters that it's faster and that it's more force or it's less force. And how you're generating that force. It's like, if we want to categorize it, you might get more or less adaptation, but it doesn't necessarily
There's also
work that cleanly.
I was watching Dan Back posted something about the force velocity curve, and he made a good point. And it was like, when you're looking at the force velocity curve, when they measure that in a study, it's at maximum tension. And if you're ever doing a movement without maximum effort, like, you're not on the force velocity curve. You're like,
you're below the curve somewhere.
Yeah. But there's so much nuance, and then you could even get into the musculotendinous unit, right? How we talk about the muscle might be acting in a slow concentric way.
Yeah, that is like a whole different. When you look at collisions with the ground, that's where it gets really complex. But it's more ammunition to remember that it's important to do all the different qualities, and then
check the check boxes.
Yeah,
baby.
and it's really important to understand that what changes is the order in which you address those and the time spent on each of those qualities as you develop a deeper understanding of what helps you or doesn't. Like in his case, it's easy to fall into the trap, or if a lot of you guys are watching this as 2-foot jumpers, it's easy to fall in the trap of like, oh, all I need to do is concentric strength. That's it. Because that's what makes, I just need to squat and power clean. Get my concentric strength up and get my concentric strength up, or concentric slow power up, kind of. And that, if you fall into that trap, you're going to be an Olympic weightlifter. And there's basically no, like, you're not, and maybe you jump, so you work on really fast eccentric work, and then you only do slow concentric work. Like, you're just polarizing on both ends. You're missing a ton of opportunity
and
to
be
adapt.
fair, it can work.
It can work. It's just you're not going to reach his level. That's the argument I would make. Like, it could work, and if you're a genetic freak, you might jump higher, but I would say relative to your percent of genetic potential, like, he's going to reach 100% of his genetic potential by the time he dies, hopefully. Whereas if you just took that approach, you might reach 80% of your genetic potential. You can't view it in terms of absolute vertical. You have to view it of how much of my potential did I reach, of my biological capacity, my adaptive reserve, how much of that did I fill up? Did I get to 100% of it, or 99.9%? Or did I leave 40 or 50% of my adaptive reserve because I decided to just take this polarizing approach? Which, for me, is why I'm not beholden to any one system or one exercise or one, dogmatic approach to it. It's like, we need to do everything. I mean, there's things right now that I would like to do next year for him. And the problem is that there are long-term consequences sometimes to that. Like, if I decided to blow you up to 220 pounds just for funsies to see what happens, it might take him 6 months to lose that weight. And your athletic prime is maybe only until you're 32 or 33. So there's consequences to it, but yeah, I don't. That's kind of my lens on it. So we do have to go, though. We have a group call. If you're if you're a THPstrength athlete, there's a group call at 11 EST every Tuesday.
You can talk to us.
You can talk to us in real time. So we're going to hop on that call. And if you're not on THP, you probably should sign up, because obviously we're pretty knowledgeable about helping people jump higher.
It's right now you can get 20% off. It's about $33 a day, and like our
wait, $33 a day? You mean
30
$33 a day?
$3
$3 a day. I was like, dog, $33 a day is expensive.
So, like, our good old friend Austin says, that's lunch. That's half a lunch.
That's not even a lunch, dude. A lunch is $15. I would know. Andy buys one every freaking day.
Yeah.
So that's like a fifth of a lunch.
Yeah. So stop eating out.
That's a bag of chips, dude. That is literally a bag of chips.
Stop eating out and start cooking your own meals and get on THP and transform your vertical.
All right. See you, folks.